Hi, my name is Charlie Wiseman. I'm the competition director for NYC Midnight. First off, thanks for judging. This should go over the Submittable platform, which we're using now for our judging for all of our competitions, and it should be a lot easier to use than our old system. So just to start things off, you should receive an email from Submittable after you've logged in, created your username and password, and it should show which submissions have been assigned to you based on what you preferred or what you requested. So whether you requested 3 heats or 2 groups, whether it's which genres you requested, you'll get an email with all the submissions included, and that's what you see here. You'll see here there's it says 87 submissions, so I believe that's 3 different groups. You may have requested a comedy and a horror and a sci-fi, so you'll get everything all together. These are all the submissions that you're required to judge. So just to get started, the easiest thing to do is scroll to the bottom of the email, and it says review all your assignments at this link. Just click there, and you'll most likely be asked to fill out your username and password. So I'll quickly enter mine, and it'll take you right to the submission dashboard. So here you'll see there's all the listings of different submissions. You'll see these little labels here. 48 historical fiction, 22 horror. Obviously those are different heats with different genres. So the first thing I think to make it easier is go down to the bottom here, and where it says show 20 rows per page, just click and put the maximum on that. That way you'll see all your submissions on one page. It'll make it a little easier than having to scroll through different pages. So now you'll see here are all the assigned submissions that were in that previous email. You'll see there are 87 submissions. And what is easiest to do is, most people like to read by heat. So you're not reading a horror and then a crime caper, then a historical fiction. So let's go up to search filters. You'll click down here and you'll see category. And what category is just the competition and the round. So for example, we have 4 different competitions per year. You just, in the email, I'll have sent you, the category that you're judging in. So in this case, you just want to make sure you're choosing your category. We'll choose Flash Fiction Challenge 2016 Challenge 1 here. And then the label is actually your heat number. So you'll see these little color-coded labels here at the bottom under each story. You'll see, obviously, everything with a pink label here that says 22-horror. They're all in the same heat. So what we'll just, for example, let's say we want to read heat 22 first. So you go over here to label, and you want to scroll down and choose the correct label number. There may be dozens and dozens of labels. Just make sure you're choosing the right one. In this case, 22 horror a barge. You click here, 22 horror a barge, click done. So now you've got the category filtered and the label filtered. Click this black button here called filtered results, and there you go. It should choose all your submissions that are in heat 22. That's filtered out now, so you can read through them without having to go through different genres and different heats. Just on this interface, just so you're familiar, this plus minus, once you rate the stories, you'll have a score next to it in blue, which you'll see after this video once we've completed the review form. You can sort by the order of your score, or it'll filter by what hasn't been scored yet. Here, submission, if you click that, it should sort alphabetically. So you see here, it sorted all the submissions alphabetically. You can sort by submitter, but that's blind to all the judges. And everything else, is date, status, assigned. You don't have to worry about that. That's more from an organizational standpoint. So you've got your heat sorted. You've got your titles in alphabetical order. Why don't we get started and review one of the stories. So we'll click here on the first one, 12 Feet Deep, and you'll see this is the interface for each entry. It's fairly easy to use in that you can read everything on the screen without having to leave to enter your judging results. So you'll see here you've got the label. You don't need to change anything with that. The group numbers, horror. In this case, this competition, they had a genre, a location, and an object. So you'll see the genre, the location, and the object, the title, the synopsis of the submission, word count. Obviously, if you're in a screenplay competition, it'll say page count. And then you've got the actual file here. So just so you're familiar, if you hover over this file here, you're able to actually download the entry if you wanted to read it offline. You know, if you wanted to download all the entries for your heat, unfortunately, you'd actually have to get in touch with us. It'll be the easiest ways for us to download them and send them to you as a zip file. But if you do have an internet connection, this is most likely the easiest ways to do it right here on screen. So let's click on that file, and you'll see it'll open the document up right on the screen. So you can scroll through and you see the entire story. In this case, you can read right through it and make notes while you're reading. So let's just jump right up here. You'll see a few different buttons. It makes it full screen, so the arrows going the opposite ways makes it full screen. You can scroll through. Once you're done, you can always exit out up here. This is another download button. You've got a few options. If you have a Kindle, you can send it there. And printing, zoom in, zoom out, pretty self-explanatory. So now here on the right side, you'll see this doesn't change. This is the judging, the form that you need to fill out for each story. So a submission's not complete until you finalize the review. You'll see a bunch of questions. It's a pretty long list, but you'll see as you go through, it's very repetitious. So once you do a few, you'll see that you'll be able to knock them out pretty quickly, hopefully. Let's just get it started. The judging instructions, there should be a link to a video, this video or another, up in the screen. If you have any questions, you feel free to email me at any time. Just to kick things off, it says, did they follow their assignment? So if you didn't notice anything off, if they followed their genre, location, and object, you know, you can just choose yes. You know, just so you know, there's details on each of these choices. The genre, we allow some genre stretching. As long as they have the primary elements, they made a good faith effort to follow their genre. We don't want to disqualify anyone for anything other than blatantly disregarding the rules. So, you know, if they had a sci-fi genre and they had sci-fi, maybe they blended a little comedy or romance, you know, that's fine, obviously, as long as the sci-fi elements are the most predominant, and so on. You can always ask me if you have a question regarding disqualification. The location, the assigned location in this competition needs to be the predominant location, but it doesn't have to be the only one. So as long as it's the predominant location in the story, you know, it plays a major part, that's fine, even if they use other locations. And then lastly, the assigned object should have physically appear some point in the story, but it doesn't have to play an integral role in the story. It just has to appear at some point. So yeah, it does not have to play a creative role or an integral role. As long as it appears somewhere in the story, that's fine. The word count is 1,000 words, not including the title page. So this is right here's the title page. Those words don't count towards their total word count. We deal with this behind the scenes as an organization, so we monitor the word counts. But if you do notice a story that goes well above 1,000 words, you know, feel free to let us know here. You can choose no, and then you could type here, word count was 1,058 words, not including the title page. Please keep in mind that when you choose no for any of the above, that's going to disqualify the story. As it's mentioned, we try to be pretty lenient with disqualification, so just give us as much explanation that you can, you know, why you're choosing no to any of those. If you have any questions at all, feel free to email me. You know, also please score and provide feedback for the stories regardless if you disqualified it, since all the writers are promised feedback. Please don't leave it blank unless it's far exceeds the word count where it would take too much time to read. So even if you did feel it was disqualified, please do provide the score and feedback. And any questions at all, just email me. Thanks very much. And then let's move on to the next one. So how was the spelling grammar? So just the first thing to remember is that this is an international competition. So we have, participants from Australia, New Zealand, Ireland, UK, all over the world. So just be aware that different spellings, are standard in different countries. So, before you criticize for a misspelled word or grammatically incorrect, something that's grammatically incorrect, try to Google it real quick just to make sure it's not common usage in another country. But if you do notice some obvious spelling errors throughout, that may just be just from rushing through. This is what this is for. So horrible just means if you're just reading the entire thing, and a lot of cases, if English is a second language or it's someone's just literally banged out the story in 20 minutes, they may have just too many errors to count. That would be there. Poor is another one. Maybe a few errors per page, or upwards of 10 errors. Average, if you did notice one or two, but it wasn't perfect, average would be chosen there. And then great, if you couldn't find anything, you'd obviously choose one of these choices. And let's say in this case, it was great. So then we move to the next one. Did they violate any of the formatting requirements? So this one's another one that's quick. It's you're really looking at what's here. If there's no title page, see, for example, there's a title page here. If there was no title page, we'd want you to choose that option. If they're using a different font than what's standard, which is Courier, New Courier, Times New Roman, some wacky font, you want to make sure to choose that. The file type is the submission, it requires them to submit in that file type, so most likely you're never going to get anything that's not there. The synopsis, let's say it, we give them a maximum of 2 sentences. If it's like 4 or 5 sentences, 2 paragraphs, you want to choose that. And then lastly here, not anonymous. So they, as part of the rules, they shouldn't have their name anywhere in their file. So if it says 12 feet deep by, Joe Schmo, then you're going to want to make sure to choose this, as that's against the rules. And each one of these, has a little bit of a penalty and adjusts their score. So once you're done with that, you scroll down. This is the big one. How do you rate the story overall, taking into consideration the writing, character, and plot development and originality? So this is where you rate the story, how you felt overall, what your feeling was once you're done reading, especially in relation to the other stories in the heat. So you may read a lot of similar themes, obviously, because they have the same assignment, but we just want to make sure you're consistent with your scoring. So if you find a lot of the stories are average, obviously if you read something that stands out, you're going to want to rate it higher than average. If you read something that's a little worse than the average, then you're going to want to go below. So it's pretty self-explanatory. If you wanted to think of it more as a rating system, very poor is the lowest, amazing is the highest. So otherwise, let's say this story you're finished, you thought it was very good, you're going to want to choose very good, and then we scroll down to the next one. You'll see this little score adjustment here. That just is, if you're having trouble, if you felt it was very good, but you've been rating several stories very good, and you want this one, you thought this one stood out just barely above the other ones, but it wasn't great, you can always add 1 point or 2 points to make it stand out above the other stories that you were rating the same level. If you felt it was very good, and that's fine, you can choose no adjustment. Obviously, you can also go down a few points if you felt it was amazing, but not quite, not quite a perfect score. So you could choose amazing and drop it down 2 points. That's just a little bit of a score adjustment. Obviously, you can just choose 0 each time if you're happy with these ratings. And then we get down to feedback, which is the most important aspect of the judging. The writers do not see the scores, but they do see the feedback. That's why it's so important. If the first entry here is what you liked. So, obviously there's a lot of amateur writers or beginning writers, maybe their first story. We ask that you try to put something down positive, what you liked about it. Regardless, it could have, just try to pull something positive out of it, what you liked about it, before obviously, laying into the story. So for both aspects of feedback, never write anything insulting or can be viewed as insulting, anything opinionated, or, the writers are pretty sensitive, especially, with something they worked so hard on. So nothing sarcastic, we want it to be very simple. It should be helpful feedback. Helpful feedback without being insulting, essentially. So now we're going to scroll down to what needs work. What needs work is, what you feel would make the story stronger, or what the writer needs to concentrate on to improve. Since the writer's seeing your comments, you're only providing helpful comments, like I mentioned before, nothing sarcastic or insulting. So this is a very important part where you're telling the writer what they need to concentrate on to improve. Obviously, if you love the story, we're still trying to find things that you do feel would help improve the story, or little nitpicks. It's okay if you really loved it, but we just don't want you to say nothing to improve. We always want something for the feedback that the writer can concentrate on to improve. Another thing is, writers are pretty sensitive when it comes to criticism. So not that we don't want criticism, but just the way it's phrased sometimes can make a big difference. So rather than saying, you need to do something, or this will absolutely make it a better story, telling them concrete ways to improve their story, it's better to phrase it as a suggestion, or helpful suggestion, or try this, or this might work. So things, writers can be pretty sensitive, especially if you're giving them concrete ways to improve it. So it's always helps with the phrasing. This is an international competition. I mentioned it before, but another thing is, try not to criticize for anything, anything that's not, may not be standard in the US, but is standard in other countries. One other quick note regarding this feedback is, any kind of historical inaccuracies, please try to always research before you write that down. Nothing gets under a writer's skin more than, pointing out a historical inaccuracy when you're in fact incorrect about it. So, if you're going to point out that, well, this war didn't happen till this year, you just may want to Google any kind of historical inaccuracies to make sure you're criticizing the right facts. And then lastly, any other notes here, you can enter, anything for the organizer. The writer doesn't see this, anything you can think of, feel free to write here. So here you'll see two buttons, finalize review and save draft. If you wanted to come back and work on it later, you can click here and click save draft. That'll save your review. But let's say you're done with the story. You click finalize review. You'll see there's some required fields. So as long as you filled out all your fields here, everything with little red asterisks, here we'll just type feedback just so there's something there. And you should be able to finalize your review. So once you click finalize, it should give you a score. So you'll see up here, the total score was an 89. If you're happy with that, you can move on to the next story. So the next story, you see here up at the top, this little right arrow, that'll bring you to the next story. So you can click right next, and you'll see it'll bring you to abandon, fresh review, and you start the process all over again. Let's say you go back to the home screen by clicking this back arrow here. It'll bring you back, and now you see all your submissions, and this time it'll show you the little blue score right next to the submission. So that means that you have a score there. Everything else without a score means you need to finalize the review. So you can always go back up here to clear filters when you're ready to start your next heat, or filter by, I believe you can filter by something that's been rated or not rated. So if you wanted to choose what's not been rated, you click here, filter results, and that 12 feet deep should disappear, and now you have all your other submissions that need to be rated. You can obviously choose the heat as well once you're ready to filter. So that should be it. Hopefully that should help everyone get started. But obviously, any questions at all, feel free to email me. My email address is charlie.wiseman@nycmidnight.com. You should all have that. But yeah, sorry for the long video, but hopefully this helps make it a little easier. Thanks for judging, and yeah, speak to you all soon. Thank you. Bye.